Next up, we have Patrick. Peter. Peter Anonymous. No last names here. Peter's going to speak about the banking situation and just educate you a little bit about the economics of this beautiful revolution.
I'm going to talk to you first a little bit about the economic system, because the economic system makes the planet run. Without economics, nothing we want to do, or green energy, or anything that we want to support won't work. It's the backbone of how the country works. Now, there's something called the Senate Banking Act of 1933, which you all may know as the Glass-Steagall Act. Normally, the banks are utilities. They're not meant to invest your deposits in exotic derivatives in Guam or in Outer Mongolia, and then when they go bankrupt, they expect the people to bail them out, which is the biggest fraud on the American people in the last 100 years. And how that works is that the Glass-Steagall Act does not allow banking systems to operate like casinos and gamble depositors' money. The first thing we need to do in America is every citizen needs to stand up and write to their congressman and their senator and demand that the Glass-Steagall Act be re-implemented. In 1999, Senator Graham and President Clinton took it out of existence, which allowed the banking systems to operate and buy derivatives globally. So that means that when you all remember the Enron crisis, the Enron crisis was about selling energy futures, the future of energy that didn't exist, which is a Ponzi scheme and a fraud. So the first thing that we need to do as citizens is demand that the Glass-Steagall Act be reenacted. And we need to write and demand and call our congressmen and tell them that the people have spoken and we demand Glass-Steagall to create financial order. Because once that's enacted again, that will give us a shot at a legitimate financial system, because it'll put the capital controls on the banking system, and it will not allow them anymore to spend our deposits on any investment that they think is necessary. I mean, when Citibank got recapitalized, they tried to spend, $25 million of the people's money on an energy play in Europe. How is it that the government that would allow America's taxpayer money on a banking investment that we bailed out to invest in a similar energy play in Europe that has nothing to do with the United States of America, that won't enrich the people? To let you know a little bit how it works, in 1913, the Federal Reserve Act, was enacted, and the gentleman by the name of Paul Warburg lobbied the Congress and stated that if you enact the Federal Reserve Act, we'll protect depositors' money in banks, which is an absolute lie and a fraud. Because up until 1933, every bank that had a problem or a run went bankrupt and all the depositors lost their money. It wasn't until 1933, till the Senate Banking Act, which is called Glass-Steagall, did it protect the depositors' money. Out of the Glass-Steagall Act in 33 came the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Program, which then protected depositors' money up to $100,000 per person. So, to give you a little bit more history, the Federal Reserve Act is unconstitutional. And since 1913, since its enactment, till today, the US dollar has depreciated in value 97%. So the Federal Reserve exists to devalue your money. So anytime they say on television that, oh, if the Federal Reserve got abolished, that would cause interest rates to run rampant, on the upside, it could cause chaos. Well, what are you talking about? Since 1913, our dollar's been devalued 97%. I say they failed on everything they've ever tried to do. And here, Mr. Bernanke, who is our Fed chairman, now, 3 years ago, he came out publicly with Hank Paulson and said, the subprime mortgage mess is contained. So did Hank Paulson. The subprime mortgage mess is contained. And yet, he still remains our Federal Reserve chairman. So either he's a bad economist, which I don't think so, he's a Princeton professor, or he's a fraud. I don't think he's a fraud. Or he's bought and paid for by the English. Or he's bought and paid for by the banking cartel. Either scenario, he should be fired by the people, or he should be tried for crimes of treason against the people. Now, the interesting part about it is that the President of the United States of America, who was supposed to run on hope and change, hired Larry Summers to be his financial advisor. Now, Larry Summers, as the head of the Harvard Endowment Fund, lost $1.8 billion as its head. Why would you hire a failure to be the United States financial advisor to the President of the United States? everyone that he has hired has been the continuance of the Bush administration. However, the way to remedy the problem, again, at its core, is to enact the Glass-Steagall Act. And again, the Glass-Steagall Act will regulate the banking system and allow it to operate how it was meant, which is a utility, which means simple interest loans, loans to buy real estate, to serve the people, the public. And the hardest part about this entire situation is that how do you figure that the Federal Reserve Bank will lend money to the banks at 0.1 to 0.2%, and instead of the President and the Congress mandating that the people get the money, you mandated that it be lent to the people for small businesses to grow our economy, they didn't do that. So what the banking system did is take the money that the Fed gave them for virtually free, 0.1 to 0.2, and they bought 30-year Treasury bonds at 3.8 to 4%, and they would pocket the arbitrage, which is the difference between 0.2 and 4%. So they approximately process or profit 3.6 to 3.8% on the billions of dollars that we gave them. We enriched the bankers, we impoverished the people, and the bankers took a record bonuses last year with our money. This is a fraud and cannot be allowed anymore. So what we really need to do at the core, in order to get everything we want with any kind of energy programs or social programs, because why on earth would the government talk about abolishing Social Security when the fact of the matter is they enriched or they bailed out AIG, the insurance program, who also gave $100 million of our taxpayer money to European banks. So they gave our money to European banks. Why aren't the heads of the Fed, the heads of AIG, and the heads of Goldman Sachs, the people that allowed this bailout, Hank Paulson, why aren't they tried for treason? Why aren't they brought up against charges, against crimes against the people of the United States of America? You know, Plato once said, if anybody who sits complacent in the matter of politics is destined to be ruled by their inferiors. So if you sit complacent, it's like being a part of the problem. So the reason that all of us are here today is to stand up and fight for sound money, fight for the Constitution of the United States of America. In the Constitution, it states gold and silver is the only sound money, and yet we have fiat currency in the matter of in the form of U.S. dollar bills. Now, for your education, there is no fiat currency, and fiat currency means, in layman's terms, any currency that's not backed by a commodity or by gold. Or by silver. And throughout the history of mankind, there is no fiat currency that has ever lasted more than 100 years. So we're getting to the end of our rope. And pretty soon, our dollar will no longer be the world's reserve currency. And that's why they're so afraid of the gold price, because if the gold price goes higher, it signifies that the fiat currency scheme that the Federal Reserve is putting into play is failing. So China is a net buyer of gold. Russia's a net buyer of gold. Thailand's a net buyer of gold. The central banking system, who used to be net sellers of gold, are all net buyers of gold now. Follow the money. Gold is constitutional money. So what my opinion is that eventually we're going to get a revaluation of our currency, and it'll be backed by a gold reserve-backed system, which is backed by sound money. So to educate y'all, if you have a set price of gold, let's say it's $1,500, then the currency that we put in our pockets can only fluctuate 4 to 6% above that, 4 to 6% below that, and we can't have runaway inflation. This protects depositors' money. This protects the purchasing power of the U.S. dollar. This is not being done. By design, the Glass-Steagall Act was taken off so banks can operate like casinos, which allows runaway inflation. It's no protection against our currency. So in the last 2 years, our currency's devalued 20%. So that means when you go to the store and you try to buy milk and eggs for your kid, or you try to get tuition for your child at college, it goes up and up and up and up. And the wages that they pay us do not compete with the price of inflation. So inflation's going up at a higher rate than the wages that you're given, which again impoverishes and gives the class of living to the people of the United States lower and lower and lower and lower. Because debt slavery it's a crime, usually it's a crime. How is it that you can go to the bank and get, if you miss a credit card payment, they're allowed to raise your payment to 28%, to 30%. If you go to New York and borrow money from Vinnie Boom Botch, you get 5% a week. So he's actually a better lender than Chase Manhattan Bank. The loan sharks are better. The loan sharks are better. At least you know. At least you get what you pay for. With the banking system, they do that. They ruin your credit. Then they own you. Because remember this: a government that's big enough to give you everything you need is also big enough to take everything you have. So, in closing, remember, step one before anything can happen is the Glass-Steagall Act. So everyone that would like to get more educated, go to Lyndon LaRouche's website, lpac.org. And that's it. All right. Thank you very much. I hope you have a good afternoon.